So welcome everyone to Arts Alive. We haven't seen you for a while with the pandemic and everything being closed, but we're thrilled to be here today actually at the New Bedford Art Museum with Jamie Uretsky, who is one of the she is the curator for the museum, and worked on this fabulous project with 12 other people, I'm told, and with the support, of course, of the director of the executive director of the museum, Ashley. Yep. And so we're here to showcase the work of Ruth Carter. And I'm going to give the mic now to Jamie and let her tell us about that.
We're really excited about this show. The show is about 3 years in the making. We actually got a hold of Ruth Carter right as she won her Academy Award for Black Panther in 2019. And so we were like, there's no way she's going to stick with us. And she did, because she and her curator, Julia Long, are really gracious, special people, I guess is the only way to say it.
And a Mass native.
Yes. Ruth Carter is originally from Springfield, Massachusetts, and we can talk more about that in the Malcolm X section, because she has some direct connections to Malcolm X through Springfield. But yeah, here we are, and the whole exhibition, there was 12 curators on the exhibition. They're all coming from, with the exception of Rememory Consulting, from our partners. This show we could not have done on our own. We definitely needed our community partners, and those guys are the New Bedford Historical Society, the National Park, the CVPA, UMass Dartmouth, and the New Bedford Free Public Library. And we love working with those guys. They're great. So we had curators from each of those places. And the show itself, we sort of walk through Ruth's process as a costume designer and make connections to Massachusetts through the 10 costumes we have in the exhibition. This is one of my favorite parts of the whole show. We start with Ruth Carter's story vision boards. You know, I don't know if you've ever put together a board of stuff that you're researching, but she does some visual research here. So she's collecting images from, these ones of course are from Black Panther. She's collected images from a variety of indigenous tribes in Africa, and then just looking at the different sort of garments each of these tribes wear, and then pulling some color from each of the tribes to build her own version of the tribes of Wakanda. And you can see up here, we have some older materials of hers. So we have some actual drawings and collage. This was like early days for Ruth. She did all of her own drawing, and now she's working with designers to put together these digital images, but this is kind of how it started, and this is a kind of a fun one. These are drawings she did for Oprah's character, I believe in The Butler, and of course they're signed by Oprah, so I had to say yes to those, you know. Yeah, so this is the first step in her process. She'll read the script, and then she'll start collecting visual ideas and creating collages.
About how many would comprise, did she talk about how many would comprise her staff now? I'd just be curious to know, you know, how it goes from a one-woman sort of production into, I'm sure, multi-people there.
Yeah. So I asked her this when she was in town, because she is currently shooting Black Panther 2, and like her studio for the costumes are basically like an airplane hangar. It's just massive costumes. And she's more of like the CEO, like the big boss of a situation. And then under her, she has costume designers who are kind of like assigned to each character. So the Black Panther character, he needs hundreds of costumes, and so does his like body doubles and stuff. So there's like a group working on each main character, and then everything kind of goes through her. So yeah, so she went from, you know, when she was working with Spike Lee, early days, just her doing everything, her doing these drawings, and she's also a painter too. And my favorite work of hers is actually some of her collage work, which I got to get here. So here we are standing among some really lovely costumes from the remake of Roots. So the original Roots was put out in the 70s, LeVar Burton, fan favorite. And then this version of Roots was shot, I believe, in 2016. And again, like I said before, we had 12 curators on this show, and we all basically just like really got to nerd out on this show. Many of our curators are archivists, historians, and so I believe the curators that worked on the Roots piece were 2 rangers from the national park, Jan De Silva and Rufai Chardot, and maybe Lindsay Compton worked on this one too. And they really focused on the transatlantic slave trade and how we got things like the color of indigo, how that came to America. So that's all of the, when you come and visit the show, be sure to like read all the nerdy little text because we went to town with that. But here we have hand-dyed indigo fabrics that Kuta Kante wore for his wedding. We have the wedding coat, and then also in here, this beautiful sort of red lining. Yeah, and that's kind of the cool thing about a lot of Ruth's costumes, that if I know that they're like made for TV or whatever, but they're completely finished. Yeah, inside, outside, all of them. And then this, we actually have 2 costumes from the Fiddler character because he basically wore the same outfit through the entire series. And this is a version of his outfit when it was new to him. And then, with a little movie magic, we see that time has passed. And so it was important for us to show how she distresses the fabric. I mean, there's a whole team. She has like teams just that tear apart fabrics to look like they've been worn. So it's really, really, and also the mannequins that we got are big, like almost larger than life. And so we really kind of got to show off some of these characters.
Where did you get those, Jamie? Where did you get those?
The mannequins? Yeah. So we worked with Ruth to figure out what sort of mannequins she wanted. It was important to us that we're not putting characters that, that are played by Black people, like on white mannequins. So, yeah, and then also it's very important to Ruth that we got the mannequins that have the little fingers and the little hands that we can move. Yeah, so when she came through here and did her adjustments, a lot of it was about posing the mannequins. So we got these, actually the National Park paid for these mannequins for us as part of their partnership. And the question that I get all the time is like, where are you gonna store these mannequins after? And we hope to sort of loan them out to people in the city so they can borrow them for their own shops or whatever it is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And I love all that finish work and the detail that she puts into things. And sometimes I was looking at something today, I've forgotten what it was, but it was for a television show, and they were saying, oh, well, the costumes look just fabulous. I think it was that show that was so very, very popular on Netflix. I'm trying to remember the name of it now, set in the South. I can't remember the name, but anyway, it'll come to me. Sure. And but they were saying they look so gorgeous, these costumes from the front, yeah. But when you get behind, it's another story. And you can tell that these are all around gorgeous pieces, yeah.
And so heavily rooted in research. Yeah. And we can go to the Malcolm X section and talk more about her research, which is super important for this particular piece. This is one of my favorite rooms, the Malcolm X room. It was important to us to not only connect Ruth back to her kind of roots here in Massachusetts, but also connect some of these characters back to Massachusetts. And Malcolm X was actually incarcerated in Massachusetts. And so when we have these 2 costumes, when he was first incarcerated, he was a young guy. And when he was young, he wore zoot suits, and he was a part of the zoot suit culture. And so we have this beautiful zoot suit. And this is, of course, from Spike Lee's Malcolm X film, where basically the first part of that film is just like this glorious array of zoot suits and dancing. And What's really funny is that she actually was nominated for an Academy Award for this film as well because of these costumes. So, and again, this shows the interior of the suit. We have the thicker tie, and I believe that Denzel. This is one of Denzel's suits, and then the other sort of main character wearing zoot suits was the character played by Spike Lee, and so there's some Spike Lee suits as well. And then while Malcolm X was incarcerated, he wrote a ton of letters to Elijah Muhammad, trying to sort of figure out some things about his life. And by the time, he gets out of prison, he's converted to Islam, and we have him in this suit, which I think we're all like a little bit more used to seeing Malcolm X. And of course, we have the iconic glasses and the hat. Ruth provided us with 3 different kinds of Malcolm X glasses, which I love. And then also in a lot of the galleries, we have these little moments of memorabilia, and these memorabilia moments are actually from local collections. So we borrowed stuff from Carl Cruz, who was another curator on the show, from Lindsay Compton, another curator on the show, and then from my collection as well.
It's beautiful. Thanks. Beautiful. And beautiful display of it all, too. I love the colors. Who chose the colors like that? It seems to be a dark gray and like a charcoal gray and the red.
Well, that's a great question. So we actually worked with CVPA UMass Dartmouth students on the graphic design for this exhibition. And so the pops of color were really inspired by their graphic design work. The big sort of triangle cuts is actually my boss, who I wanted to paint all the walls different colors, and she was like, let's be smarter about this, which is, she's, and so then we got these beautiful sort of diagonal cuts that.
So yeah, they really make it all stand out, those backdrops, yeah.
What we have here is this gorgeous mural painted by a local artist, Fitz Lamar. He is this wonderful artist and educator in town who basically painted this for me in under 8 days. And so again, and this is sort of another smart move from my boss. I wanted this huge mural sticker from the Selma scene where they're walking over the bridge. And then my boss was like, well, why can't we just pay a local artist the same amount of money to do it? And so we ended up with this wonderful mural, and then on the TV are actually photos of actors. You might recognize some of the actors in doing the trying on her costumes, which is a big part of the process, And here's some more of her research around Selma, these historic photos. And as we move into the Selma Gallery, you'll see that Selma is a really good example of Ruth taking just one-to-one historical context of how the costumes worked. So you'll see in that Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King are basically wearing replicas of the exact outfits that they wore during the march.
The cross of the bridge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in the Selma Room now. Over here we have a dress that's actually never been exhibited before, worn by Oprah when she was playing Annie Lee Cooper. This is the dress that she wore when she went to go vote. And of course, when we were working on this show, we were dealing with voting issues, contemporary voting issues. So it felt important for us to note that voting has been an incredibly difficult thing for people of color forever. It's nuts, it's going on right now. So all this stuff, I think for us, reminded us how hard people had to fight for the right to vote. But really, even Indigenous women didn't get to vote until the 70s. So it's sort of an ongoing battle. Again, behind me, we have some more memorabilia. And then over here, we have a portrait of Gabriel Kazan, painted by local artist Deborah Macy. And Gabriel is, so first of all, this is on loan from the New Bedford Free Public Library. And Gabriel is a local a civil rights hero. I don't know if you've met, yeah, isn't he lovely? But he was one of the Greensboro Four. Right. So we're very, very lucky to have him and his family in New Bedford, and we wanted to highlight him in this moment.
Well, I think that's a beautiful idea too.
Cool.
You know, to bring New Bedford into the whole effort of
Yeah.
of that time, which as we've said, you know, continues unfortunately in many ways continues. You know.
And he's still fighting, you know, and his family and. And so connecting it back to the Massachusetts roots, I mean, another example of that is that in Springfield, where Ruth grew up, Malcolm X established Temple 13, and she actually went to Temple 13 for some of her schooling. So there was all these cool connections that we discovered through the curatorial process. So here we are in one of my favorite moments in the exhibition. The two costumes we got from Dolomite Is My Name, a film that came out in 2019. This film was really, really fun to work with. Every costume she made for this film was phenomenal. Like, choosing just two was really tough. And there are a couple of things in these costumes that I think are really special. Again, going into the finishing, we have these beautiful sort of finishing touches under here. This piece over here, the pink suit, this is like kind of the iconic Dolomite suit. If you actually were to look this suit up on the internet, they've made recreations of it. This suit is made out of fabric that is dead stock, so they no longer make this fabric. I believe she might have dyed some of these too. But really, one of my favorite parts about this section is some writing that one of the curators did, Allie Copeland. Allie and I worked on this section, where Ruth's inspiration for this was the time period, which was takes place in the 1970s. But she referred to these characters as urban dandies, and so thinking about where the style comes from, a sort of flamboyant style, but it's still pretty heterosexual, and just thinking and just creating these moments of flair. And Dolomite, have you seen this film? So this film is great. It's about a comedian named Rudy Ray Moore, who is attributed as the grandfather of rap because his comedy was rhythmic and often had music with it and very, very fast. And so he made a couple of blaxploitation films, and so those are really fun. We got to watch a bunch of really fun films that were made by Black people for Black people. Yeah, and then in the 1970s, the rest of sort of this part of the gallery pushes to some New Bedford history. We cover the 1970s uprisings in New Bedford, as well as some protests in New Bedford and Dartmouth of the Sambo restaurant. And we borrowed some photos from Spinners, a local publisher. They're absolutely lovely, and they gave me a bunch of fun insight about these photos. So you can see on this TV over here, we're just looping through the photos, and it's fun to look at outfits that people in New Bedford were wearing next to some of these outfits too. Yeah. This is our final gallery. It was important for us to kind of end on Do the Right Thing, even though this is one of her earliest films. I believe her oldest film is actually School Days, but she's done upwards of maybe 14, 15 films with Spike Lee. In her Academy Award acceptance speech, one of the first things she says after she says, "This has been a long time coming," which I really appreciate that she understands her value in her own sort of like how she's a legend, but she thanks Spike Lee for her start. And so we have two Spike Lee films in the show. Do the Right Thing felt really important to talk about in 2020, but kind of always. Behind us, we have the Mookie outfit that he wore. The whole film, as you know, took place in the hottest day in Brooklyn. And he's the only character who changes his outfit. So we have the other outfit that he wore, which was a Dodgers jersey, which also felt important to talk about. Knowing Spike Lee and how the Dodgers sort of left Brooklyn and whatnot. So and
love of New York.
And love of New York, yeah. So we have that, but we wanted to get the Mookie outfit because, of course, it's great. It's very, very sort of that time period. It's embroidered with his name and the Owl's restaurant on the back. This, I have to mention this all the time. No one thinks this is cool except for me, but when Ruth really wanted him to be holding a pizza box. So we ran around, there's a couple curators were running around town looking for a pizza box, couldn't find anything. And then again, Allie, the curator over at New Bedford Free Public Library, just whipped up this pizza box for us. So, and then over here in the memorabilia corner, this is the most exciting sort of memorabilia section for me. There's only a few things in here, but these are objects that were made by a local sort of youth empowerment group called Third Eye Unlimited. They are awesome. And these are shirts and hats that they made when they were protesting. So sort of connecting contemporary clothing to the Black Lives Matter movement, and then also to what happens in this film. The two curators that worked mainly on this section are archivists. Their company's called Rememory Consulting. They wrote a beautiful statement for us. As a museum, it's important for us to just flat out say that we do believe that Black Lives Matter. And they were able to really, really create some beautiful language around that for us. So, and so I love this section that Third Eye put together. You'll notice there's a lot of text on the walls. The larger text on the walls are quotes from Ruth. And here she says, she's talking about Afrofuture. And she says, Afrofuture, a person who takes on the responsibility of their own future and contribution to their culture. Anyone can be in their Afrofuture. And then she goes on in this quote to talk about Spike Lee, and she says, we were on the set, I was witnessing Spike Lee embody his Afrofuture because he was conscious of how he presented his films and what messages he was sending out. He was in his Afrofuture. So we often hear a lot about Afrofuturism and kind of think about what that means, but when Ruth talks about Afrofuture, she talks about it in the present. And I always thought that was really interesting, that if you're in your Afrofuture, you are standing up for your culture, you're talking about what's happening in the present.
So it's my pleasure to introduce Ashley Okino. Actually, we had done a show previously, Ashley and I, and we're here again at the New Bedford Art Museum for this wonderful Ruth Carter exhibit. So why don't you share with us the location, the hours of your fabulous place here?
Absolutely. Thank you again for inviting me and inviting the museum to be part of Arts Alive.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to come back. I'm looking here at Jamie, and I'm saying I'm coming back to read all those little by pieces there on the wall. That's what I really love to do.
Well, when you do come back, we are in the Seaport Cultural District in downtown New Bedford. We're at 608 Pleasant Street, so right on the corner of William Street and Pleasant, across from City Hall and the Public Library. We're open Thursday through Sunday from 10 to 4. And time tickets are preferred. You can go online and schedule a time you'd like to come, but you're welcome to just show up.
Okay, and what would be the best place to park? What would you recommend to?
Sure. So there's plenty of on-street parking. Meters are only 25 cents for 20 minutes. Not that bad, but there also are garages. There's the Elm Street Garage and the Zeitarian Garage, and each is about 2.5 blocks away from here.
Okay, so short walking distance.
Yeah.
Nice place to be. Fully air conditioned as we can feel.
Nice and
Great, nice and cool.
Nice and cool.
So come on down, see this fabulous, fabulous exhibit of Ruth Carter, the costumer, Academy Award-winning costumer, started her life in Springfield, Mass.